Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Evan, and welcome to Atomic Monster's Top 10 Games of 2015. This is the first in a newly established, entirely unique annual tradition, and I'm of course talking about a top 10 list of my favorite games of the year. The top 10 list abides by one simple rule: how much did I like the games, whichever game it is. It kind of defines where they show up on the list and also explains why some don't show up at all. Without much more, here's the list. Number 11! 11? Over the years, Assassin's Creed has got a lot right, while also getting a lot wrong. But here we are, in 2015, and Assassin's Creed Syndicate has crept onto my Games of the Year list. I know. I'm shocked too. It's not that they're bad games, but year after year, you know what to expect when you see Assassin's Creed boldly plastered on a game case. You know that there's going to be a sprawling environment with things to climb and people to murder, stealthily or otherwise. And that is largely true for Assassin's Creed Syndicate, but they really went back to what made the series unique. Like colorful characters, and not taking itself far, far too seriously. Alexander Graham Bell repairing your brand new grappling hook? Sure. Charles Dickens' Ghost Club investigations? Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely, give me all of those. Even Charles Darwin seems like a pretty cool dude who would be fun to have a beer with, despite being Charles Darwin. Someone who you would not imagine would be a cool dude who would be fun to have a beer with. The siblings Fry are joint protagonists, both excelling in different areas. While Jacob is more of a brawler, beat-em-up type of guy, Evie is the stealth one who will eventually be able to just straight-up cloak herself. They share the skill trees, but each have unique abilities within them, which I think is a really cool way of handling that. Combat has more or less stayed the same. It still kind of plays itself when you get going. They have tweaked the hand-to-hand stuff and tried to add more animations to make it look cooler. It works sometimes, sometimes it doesn't, but overall across the board it is way more brutal. Assassin's Creed Syndicate is of course a beautiful game, looking at least as good as Unity before it, but running a whole heck of a lot better. Even on the PlayStation 4 there were only a handful of frame drops every now and again. That in mind, the world still feels a little clockwork, like moving parts going about their business around you, the player. But it's the charming representation of the characters within the world that really brings it to life. Finally, the lack of things populating the world map really made this one special to me. Doubly surprising because it's 2015 and it's an Assassin's Creed game. Number 10! I think I first contributed to Kerbal Space Program back in 2010 or 11. It feels like several lifetimes ago that KSP was being crafted meticulously by developers who, before that, had only ever worked on commercial projects for groups like Coke. I could tell KSP was gonna be something magical. And I'm really glad it's not one of Kickstarter's failure stories. I always loved building things. The bonkers number of Lego sets I still have squirreled away in my closet speaks to this. But the days of making whoosh sound effects with my mouth as I pretend to fly my Lego spaceship through make-believe space are mostly behind me. Today, Kerbal Space Program allows me, and a much younger inner me, to build my own spacefaring vessel and try to pilot it through actual real-life, entirely fake space. It's not wholly a simulation, and it's not entirely gamey either. Instead, it straddles this glorious middle point. Every milestone that you hit feels absolutely deserved, like you earned that thing. The first few times that I broke orbit are some of the most memorable. Not because of the eventfulness, but because of what I had to overcome to get there. There's a whole lot you can do with the toys that Kerbal Space Program puts at your fingertips, outside of just visiting distant planets. You can even make things that probably shouldn't be. Things that probably shouldn't fly or move, but they do. The spectacle is unparalleled. Watching a sunrise, only to set moments later, is not something you find in many other games, especially when you're riding a ship you made. For all its thrills and spills, Kerbal Space Program was one of my favorite games of 2015. Nine. Have you heard of Firefly? You know, badass space western television program, Firefly. Yes, that's right. That's the one. Well, Rebel Galaxy is Firefly, the video game. Nor about as close as Travis and Eric could get without a license. There's bitchin' slide guitar and space pirating and an abundance of space trucking between weird planets and space stations. You can purchase new ships, and then you can purchase more new ships, and then you can purchase more new bigger ships, until you eventually dwarf the competition. Surprisingly enough, the game plays like the boat combat in Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, utilizing broadsides. I favored having a quick, up-close and personal arsenal of shotguns and such, where I would just get up in the face of the enemy and then ram them and blast them away. With all the combat taking place on a single plane, it means you won't need to be managing your height or your depth or whatever the heck. This also means it falls more on the arcadey side than the space sim side of things. It honestly takes a lot of cues from games like Freelancer. Remember Freelancer? No? That's okay. Conversations take place in a first-person view and can happen between a variety of shop owners, bartenders, merchants, traders, pirates, you name it. Rebel Galaxy really surprised me with its style and action. And then again with the console release, I thought this thing was going to be PC only. So good work, Travis and Eric, and all your contractors. You did a bang-up job of bringing more space to the year. CD Projekt Red could have mailed me a potato with The Witcher 3 scrawled on it, and I would have been pleased as punch. Thankfully, they actually did a great job with The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and it shows as the accolades have rained down upon it from every which way. Whether you're familiar with the world, the people, and the stories attached to The Witcher or not, it does a great job of enveloping players in the world on the brink of war and the intricate relationships between the movers and shakers. I don't think I blinked more than 3 times during my first day with the game. There's just that much to take in. It was like being placed amongst a tabletop set of meticulously crafted miniatures. And the stories held by those who inhabit the world are definitely some of my favorite. Even smaller, seemingly less important side quests often had captivating slices of life attached to them. The narrative direction across the entire package stands head and shoulders above almost every other big-budget RPG from the past handful of years. That's not to say The Witcher 3 is not without fault. The inventory system is clunky as all hell. The skill system is obtuse and unwieldy, and combat can get kinda samey by the late game. But in terms of stepping into the world in the shoes of Geralt, it is an experience second to none. It's a game that delivered on what it set out to do. The world is outstandingly beautiful. The monsters, people, and creatures are all incredibly well designed. And the support that the game has received after the fact has been phenomenal. Few developers go as far as CD Projekt have to ensure that the players continue to have a consistently good experience. The Bloody Baron will absolutely go down as one of my favorite characters in any game ever of all time. Going from terrible monster to lovable drunk to tortured father figure. The whole quest blew me out of the water. I'm dumbfounded over here. I can barely think of what to say. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. That's about it. That's my excitement for that quest, for that person, for that character. Kudos to you, James Clyde, for portraying one hell of a character in one hell of a game. The Witcher 3 will always be one of my favorite RPGs. And while it could have turned out any which way and I would have enjoyed it just as much, I'm glad it turned out as fantastically as it did. Even after the hubbub of the graphics downgrade, it looks great. After they fixed Geralt's movement with the alternative movement style, movement was fine. The horse still sucks, but you know, you take what you can get. Thank you, CD Projekt, for letting me truly step into the boots of Geralt, a Witcher, the Witcher, arguably, slaying monsters, saving Ciri, being a general badass. Cut off this fool Griffin's head, hanging on my horse.
Number 7.
When it came to light that From Software was developing a new Sony-exclusive Soul-like, I was thrilled. Not only was I tickled at the prospect of more finely hewn combat, but the eerie design and gothic aesthetic they showcased really interested me. After years spent circle strafing around enemies, the notion of faster-paced combat really got me going. I mean, turtling used to be the primo strategy, and it's not entirely different in Bloodborne, but at least you couldn't rely on the shields, you couldn't fall back on the shield. The DLC has some shields, but by and large, not supposed to use a shield as a hunter in Old Yharnam. Riposting and dodging, however, are both common practice, and while high-level Souls players have always dodge-rolled their way to victory, now it was more of a reliance, like you had no choice. Similarly, riposting became pretty essential, even doing crazy damage to some bosses. I liked how they scaled back on the amount of weapons out there for people to use, and arguably, in my opinion, gave you one of the best weapons right at the beginning of the game. Saw Cleaver for life. The The action still feels as tight as it's ever been, and the combat is brutal, punishing, and unforgiving. Just what I want when I come to a Souls game. All this to the backdrop of a beautiful, fully realized artistic vision. And the world design, it never ceased to amaze me how a shortcut could make the world feel so much more connected than it had before. As always, the character creator was a good bunch of fun to mess around with. Bloodborne makes me excited for things to come. Number 6! It was difficult for me to really find the best place for Fallout 4 on this list, for a number of reasons. I've always loved the Fallout lore, the worlds. Fallout 3 had some things it didn't do so great. I didn't quite enjoy rummaging through mile upon mile of subway tunnel, but it's forgivable because it was a beautiful theme park full of interesting places and characters. And Fallout 4 is exactly more of that. Except this time, the shooting isn't complete arse. Bethesda have actually made it so it is functional this time around, and VATS is no longer a necessity, which is great. The art direction is astonishing. Their use of autumnal color palettes is just very striking. It's not used often. Recognizable parts of Fallout are still recognizable parts of Fallout, like your Pip-Boy, computer interfaces, you know, simple stuff like that. Stim packs still look like stim packs. Nuka-Cola. The bottles look different. They got like a rocket ship thing going on. The writing in Fallout 4 isn't much better than Fallout 3. It's better in spots. There are moments where it really shines. A particular side quest, the Silver Shroud. He's really great! He's really great. Basically become the Batman of Boston. They yanked out the special system and made it all perk-based. So that means you can even level up things like your strength and your luck. I think it kind of broke the game a little bit. It made it interesting in some ways, but you know, I'm a purist. They made interesting additions, like games on the computers, settlement building, weapon mods. The simplified conversation system didn't jive with me so well, and not being able to really tell what you were going to say in response because of the shortened preview answers as opposed to what your character was going to say. I wasn't a fan of that either. It's serviceable though. Overall, it feels like a Fallout game, and I get a lot of the same twinges I got when playing Fallout 3 all those years ago. Settlement building could have been more fleshed out, and I hope they tweak it with future updates, but it's neat that it's there. I don't think anyone saw it coming when they released that house building thing for Skyrim, and thought like, oh damn, they're gonna have this in Fallout. Yep. I know I didn't see it coming. At least not until right before it came, you know. The companions are neat. I don't know why Dog Meat's still back, but who cares? He's a dog. Woof woof. Game's janky in the same way that Fallout games have always been janky, so take that how you will. You've made up your mind by this point. I think Fallout 4 is a great number 6. Number 5! Being a long-time subscriber of PlayStation Plus, I download all of the free games each and every month to really get my money's worth. Sometimes that results in pleasant surprises like Pix the Cat or Grow Home. Sometimes they breathe new life into games I already owned on PC like Spelunky or The Binding of Isaac. But Rocket League, the successor to Super Rocket-powered acrobatic battle cars, I might be wrong on that, it's one hell of a name. But Rocket League has brought me more hours of fun than all the rest. Easily. The fact that a game this enjoyable released for free was a huge gamble, but it ensured a massive, active community at launch. So much so that there were quite a few server problems when this thing rolled out. I definitely don't play as much as I did, you know, closer to when it came out. But Rocket League brought me several months of high-octane meetups on the pitch that rise to the top of my recent multiplayer experiences. Also, it's based on soccer. Come on. I'm not someone who ordinarily takes the time to become incredibly proficient in multiplayer games, but Rocket League flipped the script and had me boot up the training and try to learn how to better actually pull off those aerial maneuvers. Psyonix refined their simple concept of football played with rocket-powered cars while keeping the skill ceiling incredibly high. They added things like cross-platform multiplayer between the PlayStation 4 and computer audiences, and have continued to support their game post-release with updates, DLC, and fixes. It really isn't that difficult to see why Rocket League made it onto my list this year. Number 4! Undertale is absolutely 100% Undertale. It's a game that Website for Video Games, GameFAQs, simultaneously loves and reviles. You totally know about it and definitely have a very strong opinion of it. You either think it's the greatest RPG of the year and adore the throwback to JRPGs of yesteryear, however small they may be, or an irritating, pretentious project that could be the video game version of the favorite kid from sitcom A. To be fair, it's a little bit of both, with some interesting hybrid combat thrown into the mix. It's kind of a combination of rhythm and bullet hell. And while the combat is pretty standard, traditional RPG fare outside of that, I still found it to be an innovative take on RPG combat. For pretty much every encounter in the game, there is a pacifist way to resolve it. Making someone feel good about themselves, reminding someone who they are, where they are, someone important. There's a multitude of ways to get around combat and resolve things peacefully, which might be the game's single best feature. How it reacts to your actions in and around combat encounters. I liked Undertale very much, but acknowledge that your individual enjoyment will change depending on your feelings on a moment-by-moment basis. This is a game of instances, of funny little engagements. Funny might be the wrong word, because they can sometimes be pretty touching. But don't let anyone fool you. It's totally not Earthbound. Nothing is Earthbound and nothing will ever be Earthbound, no matter how much things might try to be Earthbound. But is Undertale fucking great? The answer is an emphatic yes. It really, really is. And while the first hour might be total garbage, it quickly sorts itself out after that, and really, it's just one highlight, one high note after another. For a game done by one man and a handful of contractors, it's an astonishing achievement. Three! Are you looking for an alternative to the soulless, grit-coated banality of the average competitive shooter? Or just something more fresh? Well, either way, Splatoon is the game for you. A chaotic new world full of vibrant, ink-slinging squids awaits to help you escape realistic escapism. Was it because the main aim of the game wasn't to dispatch enemies? Inking the opposing team is more in service to drenching the maps with your team's colors. Splattening the other team is still important, but it sends them back to their base instead of straight up murdering their asses. It's more like a penalty in the sport of ice hockey, a favorite pastime of my people in Canada, for a temporary player advantage. Some might think Splatoon would get old, but the gameplay goes hand in hand with satisfying controls. Even the motion controls are spot on, and I know I sound like a horrible monster for saying that. From inking to boogieing around through your colors in squid form, it's always a blast, and super fluid. The team at Nintendo created a wonderfully frantic and intense multiplayer shooter. I want you to roll that one around in your noggin for a bit. They've evolved a great deal from the days when they could hardly offer an online experience worth a damn. I hope Nintendo continues to build and iterate on Splatoon, because in my opinion, it's one of the strongest new intellectual properties they have. I also can't shake the feeling it was found on some ditched developer Dreamcast, maybe the same one that had Sonic Dreams collection buried on it. Splatoon stands among Space Channel 5, Choo Choo Rocket, and Jet Grind Radio, with a crazy sense of style rarely seen since, and I absolutely love it. They've also continued to support the game post-launch, which I'm a huge fan of, releasing DLC regularly. And while there was a hubbub about it mostly being stuff that was on the disc originally, they have since done way more. Number 2. What can I even really say about the Titan that is Metal Gear Solid 5? After years of being, I don't want to say linear, but mostly linear stealth games, here comes Metal Gear Solid 5. One of the most freeing video game experiences ever. It's truly a sandbox. It gives the players a level of agency that most games absolutely don't. Can't even dream of. When I realized that I could put an injured Fulton target, someone I was trying to extract, in a Jeep, and then extract the Jeep to get them both out of there. That's just one of many moments that really solidified Metal Gear Solid 5 as being one of the best playing games of this year. One of the most enjoyable games of this year to just sit down and play. Even though the story left me high and dry, completely wanting, burned, you could say, I still wanted to come back and finish it up. The mother base stuff, it was a nice diversion, you know. I had fun building it up. I didn't quite so much enjoy the real-time aspect of it. 2 hours game time? Please, I got things to do. Catching people a la Pokemon was fun as well. Gotta Fulton them all. And in fact, Fultoning by itself might just be one of the best features of a game from 2015. Of course, there was all the turmoil surrounding Konami and Kojima and their separation, but I don't think that really contributes to how fun this game is. I mean, it might speak to why it feels a bit unfinished, a little bit incomplete, but it doesn't detract from the incredibly satisfying package that Kojima left us with. Really a game that can be played for infinite hours if one so chooses. With a multitude of angles to approach each mission and side op, and even an online mode to sink your teeth into. For being the last Hideo Kojima helmed Metal Gear Solid, I think it's a fitting send-off to the series, and a damn fine game. Plus there's a dog with a little ballistic shield mask that has a knife, and he stabs dudes. Come on, there's a dog. He's also wearing a stealth suit. It doesn't get much better than that.
Number 1.
Most of the time, when I compile a Games of the Year list, my top choice is pretty much just that. My favorite game out of the games from that year. But this year, my number 1 goes well past that. Super Mario Maker is one of my favorite video games of all time. It is Game of the Year for all years, forever. It helps that many of my earliest gaming memories were of playing Super Mario Bros. Feverishly on the NES at my dentist office, but whenever possible. In many ways, Super Mario is a quintessential part of my deep-seated love for video games, along with Sonic the Hedgehog. Plenty of people speak fondly of the days when they made Super Mario levels with line-covered graph paper and envisioned them being played by friends, family, and whoever else. I was one of those kids. Super Mario Maker allows me to make those levels for real in my favorite games, and New Super Mario Bros. Too. There's even nearly all of the elements you would expect there to be, barring a few things like slopes and football players and dolphins. I really want dolphins. Please put dolphins in the game, Nintendo, please. There's new stuff too, though. Karibo's stiletto, spiny or buzzy beetle shells as helmets. They're all fun and intelligent additions that haven't appeared in previous games. It almost feels like you're cheating the system when you have a thwomp hit a P switch. I will be playing Super Mario Maker for years and years to come, and my biggest concern with the NX is wondering if it will have a gamepad so we'll be able to play Super Mario Maker on it. If not, I have a physical copy, so, I mean, I'll be able to play it on my Wii U forever, and always be able to hand off my gamepad to friends for them to try my level. And I'll be able to make Games of the Year in Super Mario Maker every year. It doesn't get much better than that. They've also worked out their search functionality. At launch, it was a little hectic. Weird things rose to the top, things that probably shouldn't have, things that should not be. But now, things have pretty much evened themselves out. While those crazy levels still exist, it's easier than ever with the Super Mario Maker website and bookmarking feature to get the levels that you want served up. I'm still just learning the ropes in a lot of aspects, but some people out there have made some pretty crazy stuff. How they've done it, I don't know. How they've completed it, I'll never know. Will I ever get there? Probably not. Will I have fun trying? Yes.